Hey, what's up, guys? It's Jordan with the Laundromat Resource podcast. This is show 164, and I'm pumped you're here today, as always, because today we have Dan Foley on the show, and this is a little bit different episode. He's actually a local distributor here in the LA area, and he said, hey, I've put together the list of the laundromat sins that people make that end up making their businesses fail, or at least them not making as much money as they should. And so today we're going to go through, he originally pitched me a list of 10, and it ended up being 21 things long. And so we're going to go through all 21 of those. And man, I'll just tell you up front, this was a rough episode for me because it gave me a lot of flashbacks to a bunch of the mistakes I made early on. So if you don't want to lose money, don't do these things. And we actually talk a little bit about the flip side of these things there at the end, and how to actually set up your laundromat optimally. So super cool episode. Huge shout out to Dan for putting this list together, going the extra mile there, bringing something super valuable. I know you guys are going to love it. And before we jump into it, real quick, today's Fast Lane tip is in 2 weeks. I believe I should have looked at the date. I believe it's August 14th. Yeah, August 14th. We've got our next mastermind induction night. I've shared many a times now. Masterminds have changed my life. I'm in 2 masterminds where I pay 5 figures for each of them just to be a part of them. And you can join a mastermind group, a small group of people whose goals and ambitions are similar to yours, to help encourage you, have accountability, help you problem solve, and just be company on this entrepreneurial business ownership journey that can be so lonely sometimes. And so if you're interested in joining a mastermind group, it's included in our pro membership. It is by far the most valuable thing for a bunch of our members, just to be in a group of other people who are either trying to buy their first laundromat, or who own one or multiple laundromats, or pickup and delivery only, or both. We've got people in all of those categories joining together, helping each other propel their businesses forward. It's been awesome. Ton of great feedback. So just wanted to throw that out there. August 14th, we have our first mastermind induction night. So sign up for the Laundromat Resource Pro community at laundromatresource.com/pro or /join. I think both get you to the same place. And you get all the perks of being in the pro community, but also you can join a mastermind group. So that's coming up in 2 weeks. Let's jump into it with Dan Foley right now with the 20 plus a bonus 21 Sins of Laundromat Owners. LA Laundroman Dan, how is it going, man?
Hey, man, it's going really good.
Dude, thank you for coming on the show. Super excited. This is going to be an interesting one because it's a little bit different than most of the other shows. So I'm super excited about that. So I appreciate you taking the time, not just to come on and share it, but putting together what you've already kind of put together, which has expanded from your original proposal, which I'm excited about too. But before we get into all that and what exactly we're doing today, why don't you just give us a little bit of a background on who you are and then how you got in this industry?
Yeah, so I'm LA Laundromat Dan. I'm the Dexter distributor for the local laundromat community, really covering like North Torrance to Pasadena. I've worn many hats and been in many roles in the past, including playing Robin alongside Batman at Six Flags, escorting Rachel Ray, bodyguarding the Cake Boss, and I let Paula Deen rub my head once, my bald head.
Wow.
Yeah.
You haven't washed it since, right?
Yeah, I left the butter up there. So, and I accidentally
good shine to it, you know?
Yeah. So, accidentally bumped into Steph Curry's elbow once. So that's my claim to fame. Yeah. And, but in all seriousness, I have just a passion for helping people gain new perspectives, especially those that optimize and enhance their financial success. And so that's why I wanted to come on here today and kind of do like a back to basics for, people to maybe do that already own laundromats, maybe do a checklist and go, ooh, am I committing any of these laundromat sins? Or for people new to the industry, this could be like a retaining wall to hold up your foundation as you come in and kind of keep you on the guardrails, as it were.
Yeah. I like that concept. I was pretty intrigued when you sent that over, And I was like, yeah, let's talk about this stuff, ways to go wrong. And what's interesting is your particular perspective on this is not coming from a laundromat owner who is in their laundromat, but it's and worried about your laundromat business, right? But it's somebody who's seeing a lot of different laundromats and seeing, what people are doing who are finding success and what people who are not finding success are doing and what the differences are there, which I think is just intriguing, right? And one of my like mantras, right? And you'll see why I'm bringing this up right now. But one of my like mantras in this business is the basics are the business, right? And you
Yes.
mentioned kind of going back to the basics, but the basics are the business. And so many laundromats that we would call zombie mats or, people who are struggling, it's because they're not taking care of the basics, either because they have an idea that this is more passive than it actually is, or it's because they don't know what the basics are, or because they're just, and I've been here, right? And all three of these, right? They're just so overwhelmed with trying to just keep their business afloat that they don't even have time to like think about what are the basics that I'm missing, right? So that's where you come in today, and we'll outline, we got like 20 laundromat sins here that we're gonna go through.
Originally I pitched you 10 as kind of like, people have heard the 10 commandments and the 7 deadly sins, and I had like 10 sins or 10 ways to lose laundromat customers. But then I thought, oh no, let's flip the tablet over, Moses. There's 10 more. So we're gonna give you 10 or a total of 20, and maybe I'll sneak a bonus one in there too at the end.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. All right, well let's kick this thing off, man. What are you seeing people doing wrong here in this business?
Okay. Yeah. And let me I'm going to back up and just say how I came to this and what I see. I'll try to be brief, but one of my previous hats was as a pest control technician. Two of the main skills you need as a pest control technician are an attention to minute details that people are overlooking and the ability to connect cause and effect. Okay. And so as I'm going through with that mindset to all these laundromats, I'm, from, like I said, North Torrance to Pasadena, I see the same mistakes like continually perpetuated, and nothing I'm going to share today is profound. This is all, I intend this to be extremely practical and hopefully stuff that you can just implement right away. But the first thing I think that needs to be addressed, and the elephant in the room, is that this is a mindset issue. I think a lot of these stem from what people call a scarcity mindset. In the book of Proverbs, it says there's one who scatters, yet increases all the more. And there's one who withholds more than is right, but it leads to poverty. And in today's vernacular, that would be like Red Hot Chili Peppers, right? Give it away, give it away, give it away now, right? And so, it's like this idea.
Nobody tuned into this thinking that you were going to draw the parallel between Proverbs and the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Oh yeah, dude. There is wisdom out there to be had. You just, but yeah, so I think it starts from a mindset, and you'll see that I think this mindset could be summed up as, how can I take as much money as possible from these people that are my customers with the least amount of effort? And then over time, that mindset evolves into, oh no, like what's the cheapest way for me to retain customers that I'm losing and still get mine? And that mindset is going to trickle down and impact all the other decisions, I think, that are being made or not being made at the laundromat. I should also apologize in advance. I realize that there's people out there that are more organized than me, and as we go through these, they're going to realize like, oh, there would have been a great way to categorize these, like following the journey of an actual laundromat customer from the parking lot. So we're going to be kind of scatterbrained, but that's okay. We'll deal with it. So that's number one. Any thoughts on that, Jordan?
No, I mean, I think coming from day one, and, listen, I'll just be transparent. Coming as, speaking as a recovering scarcity mindset over here, I could not agree more. And I've said this before, more in the past, but like I've literally had to be very intentional about what I consume, who I listen to, who I let have influence on me. And I mean, I've just say it like it is, right? Like I've tried to brainwash myself to have a better mindset about things than I had, and part of it is because of, how I was raised and all that stuff, which, sometimes we all come in with different kinds of baggage, right? And you may be in that situation too, if you're listening to this, but also, I think back to when I was struggling early on in my laundromat. I had this very fear-based scarcity mindset, but it was kind of for a good reason. It wasn't the right mindset to have, but it was for a good reason because I was losing money.
Yeah.
And I was like, how do I just stop the bleeding, right? Like,
the ship's sinking, right?
Yeah, serving my customers or, like all that stuff, like, which should be sort of the backbone of your business. It just fell to the wayside because I was like, I'm just bleeding to death here.
Yeah.
I just want to know how to stop the bleeding to death, right? So I would say I 100% agree with you, but also there's just good reasons sometimes that we have these scarcity mindsets, but that's not a reason to accept it and to stay there.
Or to plateau, right? And I think you said on an earlier podcast with Dave Menz back in like 6 months ago or so, maybe, you had said, a lot of this business is, not always, but a lot of it's, your laundromat is kind of a reflection of where you're at personally and your growth. And like, maybe there's certain places you can't get to because you as a person need to grow and change. And so hopefully this will do that today. Hopefully you'll see some of that. So are you ready to get into number quick. 2? Yeah. No,
I just, because I hesitate to say that I really love what you just said because you just said that you were repeating what I said, which is really just kind of complimenting myself. So I'll
do it. Go for it.
But I think, my perspective on all this now, hard to have it when I was in the middle of it, but now my perspective on all this is that's what it's all about, right? It's like who we're becoming, right? Yes, we're trying to build businesses to serve a community, to create the lives that we want to have for ourselves and our families. And all of that is true and all that can and should be true and part of this equation. But I think at its core, like all of this is all about who we're becoming as people, right? We're learning new skill sets. We're developing new mindsets. We're meeting new people. And all this is just part of this process of like meeting our potential, like becoming who, we want to become.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to chime in on that because I mean, that's just been such a core of like, who I've been becoming, right? And this has like been an evolving thing. And I didn't like start this podcast, for example, to become a better person and but I did start it to like learn from people like you and other people who've been on this show, and that was a big motivation for it too, but now as I'm like thinking about it, I'm like, this whole thing is about who I'm becoming and who it's shaping me into, and
who I'm becoming in regards to serving others. Like this is a service industry, right? Mm-hmm. This industry doesn't exist without people on either side of the business, right? If you don't have customers, you don't have a laundromat. If you're not, right. So
you might. I didn't have very many customers, and I had a laundromat. You're just not gonna make any money.
Yeah. So
I won't hold you up that long on all of them, but I think that's a huge one.
Yeah. No, thanks for slowing me down. I appreciate it. Okay. So we're going to go from the deep end of the pool back to the shallow end. Got a little too deep there, too philosophical. So, one thing I see, number 2, the ways to lose laundromat customers, displaying passive aggressive signage. Like if you want to lose customers from the get-go, right when they walk in your store, tell them all the things they can't do, and do it in bold letters, red font, like aggressive, sharp angled fonts. Just talk to your customers like they're children from every, from everything they can see, and definitely display too much of that aggressive signage. Make sure it's everywhere so that people don't miss it.
You got any examples of passive aggressive signage? I mean, I'm just chuckling over here because I've seen a ton.
Yeah, I think it's like, it comes in the form of, like I said, it all starts with don't do this, don't do that. Don't put all this stuff in here. Customers that do this will be, and I get it. Like there's irritating customers that abuse things, but there's a way to go about saying that and presenting it and giving it a positive spin and still letting people know, hey, we want you here, but like just this behavior isn't allowed, right? So,
yeah. And again, just to kind of acknowledge, like a lot of times that comes out of frustration of seeing the same problems over and over again, right?
Exactly.
But I'm with you. So like I got empathy on both of these fronts so far, like, because I've definitely, stopped putting the freaking pods in the top soap dispenser. Like, stop doing it. Like, like I get frustrated by it. Or stop putting the powdered detergent in the fabric softener dish because it clogs everything up, and you get mad and I get mad. Or stop putting too much soap, right? Like all this. Don't let your kids run around and all that stuff, right? But like you said, there's a way kind of going about it that doesn't alienate your customers.
Yeah. Number 3.
Those signs don't work anyways, so.
Oh, sorry.
Passive aggressive ones,
Yeah. Third one, never acknowledging broken equipment. I get it. Like sometimes equipment's just broken and you're not there, right? But when you come into the same store and it's a few months later and the same piece of equipment is still broken, like let me lay out a scenario for you. Just picture this little short story in your mind. You're a little lady who has to walk to the laundromat because you don't have a car and it's, a little less than half a mile away. So you load it all in a basket, take a bungee cord and strap it to a dolly hand truck and drag it all the way to the laundromat. You have your last $20 bill for the week because you live hand to mouth week to week. You break that in the bill changer, you get your quarters, you go to the 60-pound washer, you put all your quarters in, throw all your laundry in, and it doesn't start. And that owner may have known that machine's been broken for a while, and now that lady's out of $6. She's only got $14 cash left for the week. How devastating could that be for somebody who just put all that time to walk to your store, and all you had to do for them was just hang a simple sign? Especially, like I said, in the case that you've known about it and that we're assuming that you can't fix it immediately. Like just letting people know instead of them finding out the hard way after their money's gone, right? Super devastating to people.
Happens a lot. Happens a lot. Yeah. And again, like if you're coming in with the mindset because you've been sold that or whatever, that this thing is passive and you're just coming in to collect quarters, and it's not your top priority, you've got other stuff going on, which is fine. Like you can run your business that way and there's nothing wrong with that either. I don't want to make it sound like there's something wrong with that, but like it happens a lot. I love that one.
Yeah. And like I said, there's nothing profound about this, but they're going to stack up incrementally as we're getting all these in line and there's going to be an alignment. The next one, if you're ready, is don't let them contact you. And this kind of piggybacks off the last one, which is in that same scenario, that little lady who walked away to your store, now she's got a problem. And if like most of these stores are unattended, there's nobody there, right? And that's a way to do this business for sure. But time and time again, like I'm in these stores, there's no phone number, there's no email, there is no way to recoup that loss. There's no way to even just express frustration. If there is a phone number, usually it's been long dead. You call it, this number is disconnected, right? You get the message. And so like, yeah, if you want to lose customers, just make yourself completely unavailable. And maybe you as the owner don't want that level of proximity to your actual customers, but then hand that off to somebody, an attendant or a manager, right? Just give some people a way to vent their frustration. And like my huge pet peeve, and we could argue about this, is I almost hate this more than if they didn't have any way to contact them at all. It's that little note, that handwritten note with the mailbox in the back on the wall. And it's almost like you expect them to fill out the crime scene as a detective and like, okay, I was here at this exact time and here's the model and serial number and here's the circumstance and here's my alibi. And then they slip it in that mailbox and they just got to pray that like, oh man, am I going to get that $6 back? And like, I think you just lost a customer forever. Like, I don't think they're coming back,
Yeah. I've been guilty of that. I don't know. I'll just say like, early on, okay, keep going. I agree. 100%.
Number 5, we all hear bright, clean, and safe. Bright. 5, keep the lighting dreary. You want to lose customers? Like, make sure it's dim. old yellow lights, nothing up to date, half the lights working, flickering, we want to give someone a stroke, right? So leave them flickering like it's like a rave party. And it's
unless you are having a rave party.
Yeah, unless you're, yeah, exactly. Unless you are partying. Sometimes I drive by these laundromats at like peak business hours, and it's uncertain if are they actually even open for business, right? Because all the lights are off, and I get why people do this. They're trying to cut corners, right? They're trying to, like you said, the ship is going down, and when push comes to shove, I got to turn my lights off to save on this electric bill. But I think people are seeing the lights off, and they're just continuing to drive by because the perception is they're not open for business.
Can I just be honest with you for a second?
Yeah.
I'm like hating this episode already because it's just like dragging me back to like these are like things that I did. I would like turn half the lights off. I mean, looking back, it feels so, I feel dumb. Like, like I didn't know any better. Like it just is what it is. Like there's no, there's no churching this up here. It's just not pretty. It's, I did some of these things and thinking like, I got to stop the bleeding, and and it's the exact wrong thing to do. Like, and that's what prolonged my suffering so long in this business. It's the exact wrong thing to do, to turn half the lights off to save electricity. Cause like you said, you're going to lose customers that way. It does make a difference. So yeah, thanks for bringing up all this trauma.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Might need to do a therapy session after this too. So.
Maybe I should change my name to Dr. Dan because I'm going to tell you a bunch of things you don't want to hear. But here's some stitches. And that leads right into the next thing. Number 6 is keeping the store dirty. Uh-oh. Looks like...
I lost your camera.
Oh. I know why. Okay. That's funny. Maybe we can edit this part out.
Yeah.
I put my work mode do not disturb is on, but okay, I think I'm okay now. Let me try to get this back up. Okay, I think, yeah, sorry, someone called me.
That's okay.
And I had do not disturb on, but it's not working.
So let's just start with number 6 again, just kind of start over and do number 6.
Number 6, closely tied to number 5, which is keeping the store dirty. I also get why people do this, right? If you are keeping the lights off and you're unattended and you don't have the bandwidth to be there constantly cleaning up the messes that people will make, then keeping the lights off and allows you to also keep the store dirty. You don't have to reflect the poor condition that everything's in. And I'm not talking about like the simple things. I'm talking about like it's clear that if I took just like a wet paper towel and wiped it on the floor, there would be like a clean streak, not a dirty streak, right? Where it's obvious this store hasn't been mopped in years, right? And I think this is another good way to lose customers. Is just like they're just interacting with the front of the machine and the top. So just like clean your soap trays frequently and maybe just wipe down with a rag like the front of the machine. Just to keep your moneymakers looking nice and polished, right? If you care about it, then other people are then going to see that you care, and they're also going to care about your store too, right?
Yep. Yeah, agree. I mean, listen, nobody wants to come to a laundromat to clean their clothes and then leave with them feeling dirty because your store's dirty.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about basics, right? Like the basics are the business. Like this is the basics of the basics. Keep your laundromat clean. But it has to be included on a list like this because if you go around, like, you don't have to. Like, if you just think of the reputation of our industry, dark, dirty, half the machines working, yada, yada, yada. Like, these are the things that you've already been saying, right?
Yeah.
So, has to be said, sadly.
It has to be said, and I think it's like, think about it. What are you actually selling, right? Like, people are bringing in laundry and linen that at some point is going to come in contact with their skin, whether it's a shirt or pants or underwear, a blanket, sheets that they're going to sleep on. Ultimately, people want to feel clean, most people, right? And so what you're actually selling is a clean feeling. So why would your store not at every opportunity sell that idea of, hey, we're here to let you feel clean, right? Because when people are clean, when they feel clean, they can get up and go to work with confidence. They can go to that job interview. They can go hang out with their friends on a Friday night and feel good about themselves, right? And they can go to bed at night and get a good 8 hours of sleep because they feel clean when they're laying down in bed. And that's actually what you're selling. You're selling that ability, that feeling.
Yeah. And, just to speak to target demographic here of the younger generation, my Riz is much stronger when I'm looking
pretty fly
to my generation. Fly. I don't know what the equivalent is these days. But yeah, no, seriously, like confidence comes from how you're feeling. And a big part of how you're feeling is your style and how clean you're feeling and like all that. So absolutely. 100%. I love that. And I liked what you said. I wrote it down, actually. What you're actually selling is a clean feeling. I like that. I like that perspective.
Yeah. And people, they want to be prideful about where they do their laundry. People want to feel good about where they, what brand of clothes they buy. They associate themselves with your brand, with your laundromat. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, do you think people want to, if your store is in disrepair and it's dirty, do they want to be associated with that? Do they want to be seen coming in and out of that store, right? No, that's a reflection on them, right? So.
Love it. All right, hit us with number 7.
Number 7, putting off repairs indefinitely. You could slowly kill customer expectations and just leave them disappointed visit after visit and really just encourage them to find a better laundromat elsewhere by, leaving that. Let's say you've gone that extra step and put an out of order sign on your dryer or your washer, but now it's 2 months, it's 6 months, it's a year later. I've been in a store where literally 2 years later and 80% of the equipment is still out of order. I really don't know how the laundromat's open. But yeah, and I get this. This is, I think, indicative of it's a symptom of a different problem, which is maybe you got into a bad situation with obsolete equipment. Now parts are super hard to find. You're scrounging online for used parts and then trying to piecemeal it all together yourself from Frankensteining it from this machine and that machine. And it's really just like you need new equipment and there's no way to beat around the bush, but you're trying to keep these things alive. And, that's admirable in some regards. It's like you're taking care of your equipment, but putting it off indefinitely just going, like, it's gonna kill whatever regardless of what the scenario is for you as the owner. It's to your customers, the perception is, they don't care about me, right? They don't care about this problem has just gone on and on and on, right? That's the way they see it.
Yeah, I literally yesterday did a consulting call. I probably had 20 of these over the years, but one yesterday where I did a consulting call with somebody who said they're looking at buying a laundromat, and literally it was I think like a 1,900 square foot store. So not huge, but there's, it's okay sized. But there was literally 2 washers and 2 dryers working out of all the machines in that entire store, and had been like that for a while.
Wow.
So it happens. And usually it's not that extreme. Usually it's like we've got a few machines that they're broken, they've been broken, they're not getting fixed, and we're not replacing them. Like I see that a lot too. But yeah, agree. I mean, your machines don't make money if they're not working, right? And,
correct.
And not only that, but kind of going back to what you said earlier too, like there's the whole broken window effect, right? Or broken washing machine effect.
Yep.
Where, people aren't going to take care of your stuff if you're not taking care of your stuff. Why would you expect them to? And also they're not going to be super psyched about your business, really.
Yeah.
Because it makes them feel, or I don't want to speak for other people, but it would make me feel like if a laundromat owner is just leaving stuff, and again, I've been guilty of this, so I'm not talking about anybody but myself, really. Mm-hmm. It doesn't communicate that laundromat owner values me and our community if they're not willing to, fix stuff and reinvest in stuff. And again, I get it. There's like different pressures, financial pressures. You've got numbers to think about too. It can't all be just about having the nicest, newest stuff. But with that said, you've got to have that sort of mindset of you're serving your customers, because if you don't, it's going to come through.
Yep, totally.
All right, hit us with 8.
8. This one, there's a big asterisk with this one, because I know there's exceptions to every rule, but neglecting the parking lot. And And what I mean by that is someone comes in on the busiest day. There's, let's say there's 10 parking spots. It's a Saturday morning and 7 cars have parked cattywampus because the lines are so faded that nobody in their big SUV or their minivan could, correctly park. Creates this domino effect. And now there's like 3 less spaces. And then everyone coming in after that is just starting their journey off, walking into your laundromat pissed off from the get-go, having to park down the street. And like, I get it. Most people are in this scenario where they are a tenant and they're leasing from a landlord, so they're not in control. And they feel like they can't address that. But it also seems like if you have all these other things stacking up against you, you wouldn't want to go to your landlord and be that squeaky wheel and annoying them, because that would draw attention to all the things that you're not doing and your end of the tenant improvements that you're supposed to keep up with your landlord. If you call them about the parking lot, now they're going to go, well, what about X, Y, and Z that you're not doing? So why should I fix the parking lot? But man, if you own your own property and your lines just like, it just takes a white bucket of paint and a paintbrush and 2 arms, right? And just get out there and just freshen up those lines for people. Because like I said, this could impact the entire journey from step 1, right when they pull into the parking lot. They're already mad coming into your store. Doesn't set up you for success, right?
Yeah. And, we talked about before, not for a while though, but you talk about that customer journey, right? From pulling into the parking lot all the way to pulling out of the parking lot and every step in between. But we tend to focus on the inside of the store most of the time. So I like that this is in there for sure. And even if you don't own the parking lot, there are things that you can do, to make it easier, whether that's making, carts being able to go outside. I know that there's baggage with that too.
Yeah. We'll get there.
Nothing to manage. But there are things that you can do to make it easier. Train your attendants to go out, if you have them, to go out and help people bring stuff in, or have a spot dedicated to dropping off where it's a 3-minute parking spot. But then you got to enforce that too. So I know that there's all these things, but this is your business we're talking about here. So
yeah.
I love that.
Yep. And, nope, that's all I have to say on that.
All right. Hit us with 9.
Number 9, forgetting comfort. This really ties in with selling that clean feeling. But, in LA, we're in the summer months, and a lot of people, if they even have air conditioning, they're operating on one of the swamp coolers, as we call them.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, yeah, why would you want to make your customers feel comfortable? There's already body heat generated from all these people in here. And then you add the dryer factor, and then you add the summer factor. And now you have sticky, sweaty people who are there to, like I said, you're trying to sell a clean feeling. But this is the exact opposite of that. So you're creating this environment where everybody feels just gross as they're trying to do this task that you said that nobody really wants to do. Nobody really wants to come into a laundromat. And it's like with all of these, at every step of the journey, of the customer journey, you should be asking yourself, does this make it easier for them to pay me money or harder? Right? Yeah.
And I don't want to step on if there's any further ones, but kind of fits in the forgetting comfort one. But let me know if this is encroaching on a future one. But with that is, a lot of times I see there's not enough seating area, for people too. So, if you've got one bench or a couple benches or whatever, you got a lot of people standing around and stuff, it's just another thing. And like you said, is it easier or harder to make, or are you making it easier or harder for people to pay you money? The other thing, the other perspective another way of thinking about it is, you're selling a clean feeling, but emotions is what you're selling. Right? You're selling one way or another. You're selling an emotion.
Yeah.
Right. And is the emotion a positive emotion? If it's a positive emotion, people leave there feeling happy or feeling grateful or feeling anything positive. They're going to associate that with your business. When people leave feeling irritated, gross, tired because they had to stand, whatever the case may be, they're going to associate that with your business. And, we want to sell good feelings. Good feelings make sales.
Yeah. You almost want to create as much as you can, as in your power, is create this little oasis, a little break from, they're already doing a task they don't really want to do. So try to make that process like an oasis for them to just kind of forget about the rest of their problems and the rest of the challenges that we're all going through in life, and just create like I said, just like a pleasant environment as much as possible, right?
Yep, love it.
Number 10, we kind of touched on this, but you stack all those up and you're going to have unsafe vibes, right? You said it earlier, the broken window theory, right? Like for those people that don't know, you see a broken window and you think, okay, the owner of this property doesn't care about this. Why should I care? So applying that to a laundromat, you have all these other things that we already talked about stacked against you. Now people that feel right at home committing criminal activity are just going to bring that criminal activity right into the store. But what I've seen is, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but it's almost like bright and clean. Safety is like a byproduct of that. There's some difficult customers to be sure that will invade a great looking, amazing store, but it's like you can mitigate a lot of those like unsavory non-customers simply by like, does a person who's super hopped up on drugs want to be in an incredibly bright environment, or is that going to make them feel uncomfortable and out of place?
Yeah. Well, and I have a lot of empathy here because coming from somebody who's owned laundromats in some of the roughest neighborhoods in LA, frankly, that can be a challenge, right? Especially if you're an unattended laundromat. If you're an attended laundromat, it just is going to get 98% of your problems. You're going to have other problems like how do you pay for an attendant to be there all the time, right? And you've got to deal with that. And that's just part of the business. If you're an unattended laundromat, I had so many more problems in my unattended laundromat, even though my attended laundromat was in South Central LA. That's where all the 90s West Coast rappers are from.
Right.
It was like rough neighborhoods, right? Like changed a lot. And I actually really enjoyed my time over there. But I had way fewer problems, even though it was a quote unquote rougher neighborhood because there's just somebody there.
Yeah.
And so it's difficult if you're running an unattended laundromat, if you're in like an urban area, it's difficult sometimes to figure out that equation because you got people, especially if you're doing these other things and you're making it comfortable to hang out there and all that stuff. There's that balance of, and I talked about this before, but like the goal is to make it as comfortable as possible for the people you want there and as uncomfortable as possible for the people you don't want there. And that's really hard to do. Safety's paramount, right? Again, going back to the little old lady or the mom with the kids or, even just a guy coming to do laundry after work or whatever. Nobody wants to feel unsafe when they're just trying to do this chore that they hate doing anyways, right?
Right.
And they won't for very long if they have any kind of choice.
Exactly. Well, we got through the first 10. Yay.
Awesome. That's all I know. So I don't know what's coming now. I'm excited.
Okay. We're going to go back outside for a minute briefly.
Okay.
Like I said, this order I should have thought about this, but so sorry for those of you out there with OCD, but 11, don't draw attention. And I'm thinking in particular of the storefront, the sign, the things you do or don't put in the windows. It's like for me as a distributor, I'm going out sometimes and I'm doing evaluations and I'm looking at all the stores that I know are in that area. But you'd be surprised how many times it's like I've gone to this area 5, 6, 7 times. And then a new laundromat that's been there for years crops up on my radar because they didn't have an adequate sign. It wasn't on, it's broken. They're just doing nothing to let people know, hey, we're open for business, come do laundry here. And I get it. Like there's a ton of factors that go into that. That's probably also in line with the whole landlord thing and like what they'll allow you to do. But it's like I said, it's one of those things on my list because it's more often than not, I see it so consistently that like it is in control of some of these people. It is within their control to just have the sign on, just have it not broken. And that's like your first impression of the branding, of the messaging. Like I said, like the font choice and everything, whatever's in your control. But that's like, right after they park, that's like the next thing, right? Is the sign. So that's a big one.
Before they park. Yeah. Well, and I tell consulting clients all the time, like, don't make big changes inside your laundromat without doing something on the outside because people, and I mean, I've done that, right? Like this is just like a list of all the things that I did. And you're saying not to do, which is kind of jacked up actually.
Sorry, man.
No, but I've made that mistake where I've literally invested hundreds of thousands of dollars on the inside, did nothing on the outside. And so everybody driving by has no idea that I just dropped hundreds of thousands of dollars. And this place is looking, like $1 million on the inside. And outside of our building gets neglected a lot, whether you own it or not. And even in that scenario, I even owned the building, and I still was, I don't know. I'm embarrassed right now. This whole episode's embarrassing.
But
I'm sorry, man. I've done that, right? And I know I'm not the only one. I may be the worst one because I'm pretty sure I've checked off every one so far. I'm 11 for 11. So.
Oh man,
it's explaining a lot to me of why I was struggling so much.
12. Giving up on graffiti. This one is annoying because it's not really within your control, right? It's just any old hoodlum walking by. I was guilty of this at 17. If we want to dig into my past real quick and my previous sins, back when I was up in the Bay Area, I was for a brief stint one of the local names up, destroying property. I think statute of limitations has gone by, and I could admit that. Hopefully nobody's coming.
I will be looking into if there's a reward for this.
Yeah, right. Out to capture. But yeah, and I don't mean just the spray paint or the screwdriver etchings in your bathroom mirror, but also consider the corkboard in the corner with that people let other businesses put up, and a lot of it is useless stuff that's not related at all to feeling clean, to feeling good. It has nothing to do with the laundromat, and it's really just kind of an eyesore for somebody with mild dyslexia like me. It's another thing that my brain has to process all these signs and stuff in the corner on the corkboard. And really, to me, that has no place in there. The one exception I would make is if you're next door to let's say a boba tea place, and you guys are trying to lift each other up, and they're posting hey, come over, if you use the laundromat, come over and get 50% off on your next drink on us. That's great. That's amazing. You guys are holding hands together, tenants working to improve the lives of your customers and giving them extra value to be there. But when it's just random stuff like this 2-bedroom apartment and I can mow your lawn and call my number, it's that stuff is kind of an eyesore. So
yeah. And people, even if you don't have that, I'll just, people who don't have, if you don't have that in your laundromat, probably you've experienced somebody trying to tape something up on your window or next to your coin machine or on the bulkhead or whatever. I don't know. People are always trying to tape stuff up in my laundromat. I'm like, dude, stop it.
Yeah. Ask permission, please.
It makes it just look so much worse. And it doesn't serve any purpose, right? But I mean, I get it, but still, come on. You wouldn't go do that at Target.
Right.
That's not my business.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I'm glad you brought up grocery stores and stores like that, because I do want to actually go back to carts. So here's a hot take, but not letting carts outside. I want you to pretend for a moment, just think of every grocery store you've ever been in. Close your eyes, listeners, and just think of, what was that one store again that didn't let me take the cart out to my car and put my groceries in it? Oh yeah, it's none of them. And the only exception I could think of is Aldi, where they are I'm assuming they're trying to cut costs on having a cart person round up all the carts from the backs of the parking lot. And so they have this little system where you put a quarter in, and then you can unlock the cart from the rest of the carts. You can still bring it out to your car, and then when you put it back and you get your quarter back, right? That's a great system. Super. Aldi, if you're listening, that's genius, right?
Aldi is an avid listener to the podcast. all of them, specifically the executive suite.
Yeah. But man, it's just think of that process, right? And now, why do we not do that in this industry? Why do we prevent people? What do you want, right? Ideally, everybody wants customers with large amounts of family members, tons of laundry coming in, 60, 80, 100 plus pounds. They're going to spend more money at my laundromat. Great. But because of a few bad apples that, stole my laundry carts, I'm not going to let any of the laundry carts out. I'm going to make it so difficult, like I said, from, They parked, they couldn't find a parking spot. Now you don't let them take a cart outside. But like grocery stores don't do that, right? I get it. Grocery stores have more capital to spend on lost carts and cart upkeep and, greasing the wheels and all that. But this is just like another thing that's making it harder for your customers to give you money.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, you said this in the beginning, this all goes back to mindset, right? It all goes back to mindset. But, speaking from somebody who's had tons of carts walk off, and I've even driven around the neighborhood and found them and brought them back. I've done that, and it's frustrating, and it's can get expensive. Those carts aren't getting any cheaper. Everything's getting more expensive, right?
Yeah.
But like you said, the lens to filter a lot of this stuff through is what's going to help my customer base, and then after you decide, okay, here's what's best for my customer, then you can start to troubleshoot and problem solve all the workarounds. And I do feel for a lot of these things, it's like a game of cat and mouse. I always felt like I was playing a game of cat and mouse, right? Homeless people coming in to charge their phones.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to get rid of all the outlets so they don't do that. Well, guess what happened? They started opening up the bulkheads and unplugging the Horizon washers that I had and plugging in their phones with the bulkheads open. So I was like, all right, I'm going to have to screw down the bulkheads. And then what happened? They brought in their own screwdrivers and unscrewed it. So then I had to get the security screws to screw it. And it's just like game of cat and mouse, right? That you're doing. And I get it. But again, it's got to be filtered through what's best for my customer. And then your job as the owner, or if you have a manager, I guess, is to deal with the other stuff. Either build the costs into your pricing or figure out ways to mitigate the risk there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. Number 14 is if you're attended or have a manager or some kind of staff on hand, not having a helpful attitude. Now, I don't know if it's just because I'm a big, scary, bald white guy with a beard, but I can vividly remember, I can count on my hands the times that I have been greeted and welcomed into any of these, 1,000+ laundromats throughout LA. One story sticks out in my mind. I can remember this like it's yesterday. I drive up to the store, I park, and by the time my ignition is off, the attendant lady, maybe she's a store manager, she's brought the cart out to the back of my car. And then as soon as I got out and closed the door, she said hi. She welcomed me, asked me if I needed anything else at all. And then when I said no, she said, thanks for coming to the laundromat. She went back in and did whatever else she was doing. And I remember that so vividly because it's the only store it's ever happened at. Right? And I know where that store is. It's in Pico Union, downtown LA. I still remember exactly every detail about it because of that lady, right? And that was just me. And that store is hopping. They got so many customers. They got money probably falling out of their ears, I'm sure, because of customer service like that, where it's they made me feel like I was wanted, and they went out of their way to display that, right? And it was simple. It wasn't anything crazy, right? It was just hey, here you go. Thanks for coming.
Yeah. And, I brought this up quite a few times, but if you haven't read this book, you should probably pick it up. I'll leave a link to anybody who wants to pick it up, but Unreasonable Hospitality
I'm going to write that down.
It's just the title of it, if you don't read it, you're just it's just a mindset shift, or it was for me, I guess. I'll just speak for myself. It was such a mindset shift that's blow people's expectations. It's not that hard to blow people's expectations. Like you said, she came out and brought a cart. That seems like a no-brainer to me, but I've never seen anybody else do that, right? It's not, the bar is so low on how to blow people's expectations, especially in our industry. And there's entire massive billion-dollar businesses built. So, think of Chick-fil-A or In-N-Out here in California. Just a couple of examples, right?
Yeah.
What was the department store that's is it Nordstrom's or one of the big department stores? I think it was Nordstrom's, where it's you could bring anything back, even if you didn't even buy it at Nordstrom's or what.
It almost sounds like Costco.
Because I don't know who it was, but people were bringing back ridiculous stuff, and they'd just be yeah, here, we'll refund the money that you didn't spend with us. But was so unreasonable and hospitable that they just built their entire business on it. And it would not be very hard to do that in our industry.
Yeah, I like what you said. The bar's low. It seems counterintuitive. You are going to stand out in a good way if you start implementing, like if you're attended and you start implementing simple customer service, just acknowledging people. I don't know how many stores I've been in where people, like, it's not only they didn't acknowledge me, but I tried to talk to them and they ignored me. Like I said, that could be because I'm big and scary and I have a beard, but it's a little disheartening when you're just trying to have a conversation with somebody and they're just actively like give you the cold shoulder. So,
yeah. And I'll just, last thing I'll say on this one is I know a lot of very successful laundromat owners. I don't know a single one who is successful. Not one I can't think of who doesn't have great customer service at their store. Like it's basic. You know, the basics are the business. It's basic, but it's also mandatory. You cannot have a successful laundromat where you're making a good profit without great customer service. And a lot of us get caught with employees that we don't let go when we need to. Wind just kicked up. Sorry, I don't know if you can hear that. The door just slammed. But we get caught with employees and we don't let them go when we should because it's hard to do, tough conversations, all that stuff. But it's so critical to having a successful business. The who you have, whether it's you or your employees, it is so critical that I probably would go so far to say that if you don't have good customer service, even as an unattended laundromat, you will not be successful. I would probably say that definitively.
I agree with you. Yeah. Yeah, totally. 15 ways to lose laundromat customers: agitate and overstimulate. This is me kind of nitpicking, but there's a few laundromats that I've been into where the default, or I should say the primary colors, and I'm going to be a little vulgar here, were piss yellow walls and blood red bulkheads. And they might have even had some brown in there. And when I say that, what does that make you think of, right? And it's like, if I can understand like green, red, blue, yellow, used sparingly. That's actually a really great color palette, used sparingly, right? But man, red, yellow, I don't think you are going to be taking the brand, borrowing the brand identity from McDonald's. And that is not something that I would recommend doing in your laundromat, because you're just calling to mind all the things people are trying to wash out of their clothes.
Yeah. Well, and just anecdotally, I despise the yellow-red color combination, but it just seems to be so common in our business. McDonald's, I think, pulls it off, but I don't know how, because I really hate that combination. But that's just me. But I generally tend to be right about every single thing that I say. So,
yeah.
Just kidding. Just ask my wife; she'll tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I get that. It's just kind of like overstimulating, being kind of aggressive, right? And again, thinking about as you're doing your branding and your brand kit and all that stuff, thinking about the feelings that you're conjuring in people, because that's what we're selling here. Good feelings.
Yeah, I think it's, color is something people overlook. You can guide a whole mood with color. And I think that's why a lot of these laundromats, successful ones, are white and blue, because those are feelings of clean, feelings of calm, right? And you put that together, that's exactly what you want to sell. You want to create that oasis, like we said earlier. So 16, we kind of touched on this earlier, but washers, more washers. And offering so many washers that your wash to dry ratio and your flow is completely jacked and off. And one way, not every time, but one way I can walk into a store and immediately almost know if the flow's off and if they have too many washers is if, the left side wall is all dryers and the right side wall is all dryers, but for some reason the back wall is all washers and the middle of the floor is all washers. I can almost guarantee that they have too many washers. And this is, you brought it up actually, in and out, right? The in and out model. People will sit in that line during peak hours because they know that they can consistently get through and get good food the flow, they have mastered flow, right? Take a lesson from In-N-Out, and that is, you might think it's a good idea to max out the washers just because you have X amount of space, but you might be going overboard to a point where you're actually creating bottlenecks, so that if everyone were using the store simultaneously, you're not going to be able to, there's going to be a line out the door and people not able to get in and out fast enough because you've created this flow, because you got a little too aggressive and a little too greedy with wanting to put more washers in, right? Because we all know, like, the washers are the primary money makers in this business model. So that's, I think, where that mindset comes from, is like, oh, more washers, more money. But you might actually make more money if you just had a better flow and with less washers. I don't know. What do you see, Brent? What do you see, Jordan?
Well, number one, we don't all know that. So thank you for bringing that up. And yes, I agree. I was going to ask you before I chime in here, do you have you said having the wrong ratio can throw everything off here. Do you have a rule of thumb on the correct ratio?
Yeah. I mean, this isn't from me. I've heard this thrown out of like 1-to-1 bare minimum for every one washer, one dryer. I've heard the more ideal ratio is like for every 1 pound of wash, it's going into the washer, it's getting wet, so now it weighs more as it's coming out, which means you technically need a little bit more dry. So like 1.15. So for every 1 pound of dry wash, 1.15 pounds of dry capacity. But yeah, like a dead giveaway is if you're looking at a store and you're looking to buy it and you're wondering. Usually, like I said, if one of the walls is also washers, that's a good indicator that you're probably over. And yeah, it's almost not about having the best ratio, but you definitely don't want to be in the negative. You don't want to be having a bad ratio.
Yeah, and I think it's a pretty good rule of thumb. I was going to say 1.1 to 1.2, and the way to look at it is not, like you said, is not number of washers to number of dryers, especially now as we're getting a lot more options in terms of, 60, 80, 100, 120 pound washers.
Yeah.
You want to look at poundage capacity. So if you add up all the pounds wash capacity of all the washers and same with the dryers, having the dryers poundage outnumber the washers at about a 1.1 to 1.2 ratio.
Yeah.
Right in the middle there.
It's nothing crazy. It's just a little bit more dry ratio.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it helps you with throughput, helps you with flow. Those dryers tend to be a bottleneck. I'll see in like one of my stores or another store, I'll see like half the washers or 3/4 of the washers are being used, but all the dryers are being used.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so that's a bottleneck. Now, when your wash finishes, you've got to wait there, right? So you want that throughput to be, keep moving, like In-N-Out.
Yeah, keep the customer flow. Yeah, the next one, this ties right in. We kind of touched on it already, but 17, if you want to lose laundromat customers, cramp their space, right? We're talking super narrow aisles, but more than that, it's like there's a domino effect if you have too many washers, because something's got to give, right? And so it's the dryers, and if it's not the dryers, it's the folding. And if it's not the folding, it's the seating, or all of the above. There's some extreme cases I've been in where there's like 1 to 2 maybe folding tables and no seating at all. And it's like, man, you didn't think about the full journey this person's going through. Wash, dry, fold, right? And at some point in there, they might want to sit down and give their knees a rest, right? Give their ankles a rest. Standing on concrete can hurt over, long periods of time. But yeah, this is just a domino effect of having too many washers. Is you haven't thought like, what's this customer journey, and am I seeing it through to the end, right? Giving them that space they need just to finish the job and get out. So
yeah, and what I tend to see happen too, if you do cramp in too many washers and with that domino effect too, and usually that happens because either, I don't want you to take offense to this, either a distributor is just, the more equipment they sell, the more money they make.
Right. Yep.
That's just it.
We're
It
guilty.
is what it is. Right?
We are guilty proponents of this.
Yeah. So that happens, and I see that happen a lot. Or like you mentioned earlier, the mindset is if I put more washers in, I'm going to make more money. However, what I found is if you don't have the folding and the seating, that's actually going to cap the number of customers you're going to get. So it's actually going to backfire on you. You're going to get less customers. But that's tricky to know. Like when you're buying your first, you're building your first one, it's really hard to know. And that's where like a good distributor can help you figure out that ideal washer to dryer ratio and the layout of that, and how to, make sure your throughput's good and make sure there's enough space for carts and seating and folding and, all that stuff, but you have enough capacity of wash and dry. There's a science and an art to that. And unfortunately, if you get stuck with a bad distributor, sometimes you don't have an option, which is a bummer. And that's a good opportunity for you to, tap into something like the forums or a Facebook group, or, grab a consultant or something like that can help you, sort that out, or just a second set of eyes if you're getting like some yellow flags from your distributor that they're just trying to sell you as much as possible. It'd be good to kind of get a second opinion on that. So, but that does happen. Like it is what it is. And, I talk about that. I talk about how brokers, it's the same thing. They only get paid when they sell you the laundromat, and the more they sell it for, the more they make. And I say that I've brokered deals. Like I'm a broker there, so I feel like I can say that.
Yeah.
And it be okay, because that's just the reality of the situation. And it's better that we know that going into it than to not know it. Like what happened to me, not knowing it, and it bites you in the butt. You live with the consequences long term.
Yeah, and thank you for bringing that up about distributors. I think any listeners out there that are working with distributors, if you have that happen, push back, challenge it, because I know that happened. I made that mistake early on in this industry with one of my first customers, and he pushed back, and I'm thankful he did, because it wasn't something I wasn't intentionally trying to, wring him out and get everything I could from him by selling him more washers than he needed. I just simply overlooked it. And I have never, ever overlooked it since he brought it to my attention, because that is something that, that we are guilty of, as distributors is, we are trying to make money for our families too, just like everybody else. We shouldn't be doing it at the expense of your success and the flow of your laundromat. So yeah, if you're out there and you're listening and you're working with a distributor and you feel like maybe this is too many washers, just push back and ask them, hey, what's the ratio right now? And then something I wanted to ask you, Jordan, because I'm still learning, is what's your like ideal ratio of actual folding, with the other things in the store?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know that I have. It's hard to say, right? Because I think it depends. If you're, for example, I've got consulting clients who are like in New York or San Francisco, and they have these tiny little laundromats, and you kind of do need to sort of pack stuff in there a little bit more, and you're not probably going to have enough seating, and you're probably not going to have enough folding, because you've only got 600 or 800 square feet to work with, but there's a ton of people in the area that need laundry service because it's super dense. Versus some of these like Midwest stores that are like 6,000 square feet.
Yeah.
And you're like, you drive, I look at like the Williford, they're on the East Coast, not the Midwest, but I look at the Williford Brothers store, and I'm like, dude, I could drive my truck down the aisle.
Yeah. They have everything super out there, like super Walmart, super gas stations.
I know.
Super laundromats.
Super laundromats, man.
So it's case by case.
Do you have a kind of rule of thumb? I'd be interested to hear I don't know that I have one, actually.
No, I don't really have a good rule of thumb, other than it's like it when you see it, when it's too little, for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, that'd be great to hear from the comments and people, somebody chime in, let us know. School me, please.
Yeah, if somebody has a rule of thumb in there. I mean, I'm going to put some work into that too, because I think that there is probably a good rule of thumb, in terms of number of, probably, I would, off the top of my head, probably poundage of dryers to linear feet or square feet of folding. Probably be a good metric to have.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. Maybe I'll just have to go through. Maybe we could both just go through a bunch of laundromats and measure.
Yeah, that'd be a good idea. I should have done that already.
Just get an average. I know. All right, if you end up doing that, let me know, and I'll do likewise.
Yeah, that's on the bucket list. I'll write that down. Measure.
Skydive and, in Dubai over the Palm Islands and measure folding tables. Bucket list items. Love it. Okay. I think that this is a good one. Cramping space. It's, and that's also, I'll just say that's also a relative term.
Right. Subjective.
Here in LA or New York or San Francisco, some of these places where space is a premium, there's a fine line between too much and wasting revenue producing square footage. So there's a fine line there. But it is something you want to go into intentionally.
Yeah. So I think, to your point, it's like if it's going to be by area and completely subjective, then you should be doing a little survey yourself of your competition and seeing like, what are they doing? And does it feel too cramped, or does it feel like, oh man, that their store feels so much more open than mine and their customers are just getting in and out easy. Yeah. Something to think about for sure. Next one, 18. We all have 5 senses. Most of us have those 5 senses working, right? Sight, smell, taste, hearing, and touching. And I think a couple of those get neglected in the laundromat. And the one I want to focus on is number 18, losing customers. You could lose them by increased noise pollution. And it's like, man, kind of like back to the body heat one, like there's so many things that are already contributing to heat in a laundromat. Like, why add more? Same thing with, there's so many things already contributing to the noise factor, right? You got families with kids running around. I'm guilty of that. You got squeaky wheels on the carts. You got the bearings going out on the washer. You got, the dryer basket is dragging. And then even if your store's in pristine condition, there's still a lot of noise happening. And it's like, I come into some of these places and it's just such a stark contrast from outside to inside. You're just immediately slammed with this wall of noise where they have the music cranked up way too loud, like it's like we are at a rave and we are at partying, or they have the TVs on way too loud. And it's just like, you're just adding to, imagine I'm like a mom, right? Who's got 3 kids and she's trying to track all these things. And now you're deafening her to all the things she's trying to pay attention to, right? And that is, I think, something that's really overlooked is because you can't see it because it's sound waves, right? But just being cognizant of the level of noise that's unnecessary, that you're adding to the mix, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so my wife is special needs teacher, and she works with a lot of kids who have like sensory issues, right? It's not just kids that have that, but I mean, she just works with kids, right? But, a lot of people have sensory issues. And, I don't know if you're going to talk about this or not, but, we're talking about the senses. I mean, I think smell is another one.
Yeah.
You walk into some of these laundromats and you catch a faint whiff of sewer smell, or sometimes more than a faint whiff.
Yeah.
But I'll also say it's like, it's easy as an owner. I've seen a lot of people, this has happened. Maybe it's happened to me. I don't know. Maybe I can cross this one off too. But it's easy to go blind or nose blind or ear blind when you're there all the time. You're in it. It's just a part of like your thing. That's why, we have mastermind groups as part of our kind of pro community where you're getting together with other people who are in a similar stage, whether they own laundromats or they're trying to get there first, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things I encourage mastermind groups to do is to do what I call outside eyes audits. And that's where you just have other people in your mastermind group who are in the same area. But even if you're not in the same area, just to like, get a bunch of pictures or a video tour or something like that. Have other people have eyes, nose, ears on your, on your business.
Yeah.
And just giving their perspective of it from sort of an outside perspective, because we get that tunnel vision, we get focused on other things. We just start to tune stuff out that affects our customers, and those outside eyes audits, hugely, hugely valuable there. And it's one of the big, I think, wins for those mastermind groups is getting those and getting that input from other people about your business.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, I've heard someone say, imagine yourself as a bottle. Like, you can't read the label that you're projecting to other people. Right. And it's like the same thing. It's like people,
mostly because bottles don't have eyes.
Yeah.
A brain to read it. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Not a great analogy, but,
I'm just kidding.
But yeah, sometimes you need other people to come and read the label and tell you what is the messaging here overall, right? Yep. And it's like, you might not even have all of these things. Maybe it's just one or two, but it's like those little tweaks that you make could compound in a good way, right? And just increase that excellence for your customers.
Huge. Love it.
19, depressing customers. This kind of goes into, piggybacks off the last one with the TVs specifically. There is a couple stores I can think of where I was just like, a little part of me inside died when I went into this store. It's immaculate. It's clean. It's perfect. Brand new equipment. amazing customer service. All of the TVs are playing, CNN, Fox, whatever. Pick your
The news.
pick your poison.
TV.
And it's like, man, just give people a break from the vitriol and the hatred and the, does someone need to know that there's like a 9-car pileup on the 5, and a bunch of people died while they're in their laundromat? No, they can figure that out if they want and pull out their smartphone later. But just for that moment, those brief moments while they're in your store, just like I said, keep going back to this. Give them an oasis. Just like forget all that. The outside world. You're in my space now, and in here, it's calm and it's peaceful, and we let you do your laundry without depressing you. I've seen that enough to where it's like, why do that? I don't think it's benefiting anybody.
Yeah. Well, and it kind of goes back. Like I intentionally avoid the news. Pretty much at all costs. I figure if something big enough happens, personally, if something big enough happens, I'll hear about it. Like I heard somebody tried to kill Trump, right? Like I'm going to hear about something like that.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. I hear about, BRICS happening, which is, Brazil, Russia, India, China, Saudi Arabia trying to start their own reserve currency, right?
Oh,
like
that's news to me.
Like I hear about the big stuff that I need to hear about.
Yeah.
The other stuff is it doesn't affect my life in any positive way. And it goes back to what I was saying. Like I have to be very careful about what I let into my mind and who I let influence me. And, just for me personally, the 24-hour news cycle has just become another form of entertainment that's not really entertaining. It's just kind of addicting if you get sucked into it, right?
Totally.
But it's what it is, and it's driving ads, and so they got to keep your attention and make you stay around till after the commercial break and tell you something shocking. And it affects me. I'll just speak for myself. It affects my psyche, right? And so going back to what you were saying is like, again, we're selling feelings here, right? We're how people feel when they're at your store. They're going to associate it with your business. And if they leave feeling good, they're going to have positive feelings about you and want to continue to do business. If they leave hearing about another murder or whatever, bad feelings, and that will get associated with your business, and it will affect it. And it may not affect it for everybody who's there listening to that news story, but some people it will. And so I'm 100% with you on that. I think that this is probably your most like controversial one. Maybe some people love the news, but personally, I avoid it at all costs. And I don't feel like I'm missing out on the big news stories that I need to know about.
I agree with you. And I think, the news is effective, right? They do have an effect. I personally think that a lot of them are in the business of selling fear because fear sells. And
totally.
They are a business too, to make money for profit, right? So why would you let another business into your business talking to your customers, right? Think about it that way. I don't know. That's just my 2 cents.
Yeah. I think it's good. I agree with you. I think that'll probably be your most controversial one, but I think it's worth thinking through. No, I mean, in a good way.
Yeah.
Like, controversy for me is an opportunity to stop and be intentional about a decision, right? And for some people, they're going to say, actually, I like that my customers can come here and know what's going on in the world, or whatever it is, right? But at least you're going to be intentional about it. I think controversy gets a bad rap because for whatever reason, like we can't in our country right now, we can't engage with two different opinions.
Yeah, we can't disagree
very well.
Yeah,
generally, I mean, in public, I think actually a lot of people can disagree and have different opinions, like interpersonally, just fine. But when, for whatever reason, when it gets on the media, social media, when it gets online, the discussion becomes bigger. We can't do that.
Yeah,
and still have good feelings and respect for each other, right? But I do think that having differing opinions or even controversy, like I think it's an opportunity to be intentional about decisions that we make. So
and at least consider
I'm all
it.
for.
Yeah,
I'm all for it. Yeah.
All right, number 20,
All right,
last one.
Number 20.
And then maybe a bonus one. And then I definitely want to hear if you think I've forgotten any. Number 20 would be, if you're doing all these other things, then you are definitely going to have to drop prices. And I mean below a reasonable threshold of the local average of all the stores you're competing against, because, that's the ultimate way to lose customers. Now, you might think, that sounds counterintuitive. I'm going to drop prices. I'm going to keep customers. But in reality, what I've seen is that people that do this repeatedly, when they have all these other things stacked against them, all these other problems, it actually leads to them attracting and keeping the worst type of customers. So, those are the 20 that I have.
Well, and the other thing I'll say about that is, like, customers aren't dumb, right? Like, if you're dropping prices, they're going to know it's in 30 seconds of walking in your store that you're dropping prices because you're just not putting in any effort into this business and not taking care of the basics, right? Which are the business. So they're going to know. They're not dumb. Some of them are going to be fine with it because it's just, some of them aren't going to have a choice. They're not going to be happy about it, but they're not going to have a choice because they don't have a way to get to the next laundromat. And a bunch of them are going to leave. And it's not, you can't buy good customers with low prices.
That's right.
Like you said, you can only attract, I don't want to say only, but you're going to primarily attract the customers that are going to be the most difficult to work with by dropping prices because you have an inferior service to everybody else. And that's, I think, what you're talking about, right? I think we should be priced appropriately. And that might mean different things for different people. And there may be scenarios where being the lowest price might work out for you. And there's nothing wrong with being the lowest price. But again, it kind of goes to intentionality. And when you couple it with, a handful of these mistakes that we've gone through, these sins or whatever we're calling them, it's a downward spiral.
It's a downward spiral.
It's a downward spiral. There's no other way to say it. It's a downward spiral.
And it compounds, right? This is a compounding downward spiral that's getting worse and worse. Yeah. And I like to make the differentiation between cheap customers and poor customers, right? And what do I mean by that? Well, like, poor customers are just people that are caught up in bad life circumstances that are usually out of their control, and they're just doing the best with the cards that they've been dealt with. We love those people. That's great. Cheap customers, though, it's almost like they have a mindset, and their mindset is that no matter what their financial situation is, whether it's great or whether it's not, they are always out for the cheapest price in every way. And those are not the people that you want coming into your store and tanking your business, because they will put up with any of these things that we talked about in this list in order to get the lowest price. And so you might think, like, oh, I have a bunch of customers, right? And I have all these things happening at the store, but you could have a whole different, what's the word I'm looking for? A whole different type of customer base that, respects you and your store a lot more just by not catering to those people at all, not dropping your prices, and staying firm. And I'm not talking about gouging people, all right, not going to the other extreme where you're going to get everything you can get from them, but finding that balance based on the stores that are competing around you and what you think is fair for your market, right?
Yeah. Well, and I will say, I want to say two things about that. So number one is, I've actually found that they won't put up with this stuff to have the lowest price. I mean, they're going to complain about it the entire way. They'll put up with it in the fact that they're there, keep doing it, but you're going to hear about it. They're going to be a headache for you. Like, that's just tends to be that customer base that wants the lowest price. They're going to put up with it, but they're not going to do it silently. So there's headache involved. There's a price to pay in that also for you as the owner. So I wanted to say that. The other, I wanted to kind of flip this around just a little. I know we got maybe a bonus one, but to flip all this around, when you kind of do the opposite of all these things, you actually can charge a higher price. And I mean, this is what some of the best owners who've ever been on this podcast have said over and over and over. I charge the most in the market, or I'm the high price leader, or I'm the whatever. But they always have come from a place of, but I'm giving the best service.
Yeah.
I'm taking care of everybody. People are happy to pay me this price because I do this, and this. I have the mindset where it's customer I'm trying to serve the customer. I'm not trying to get rich by gouging people. I'm trying to provide the best service I know how. And this is the mindset they're coming from, right?
Yeah.
And basically by doing the opposite of all these things, you actually can charge more, and you're going to attract a customer base that's just going to be easier to work with a lot. Not always, obviously. There's, you got the thorns in every demographic, but
Yeah.
By and large, you're going to attract a better customer base, easier one to work with too.
Yeah, and that's why I put this one last, because it's like this puzzle piece, right? Charging more is only relevant if you're bringing that value. If you're not bringing that value, you have no business charging more, right?
Yes.
So,
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. This is a good list.
21, you ready for the bonus?
All right, we're doing a bonus. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Having a restroom open for customers. And I put this as a bonus because some people have been grandfathered in with their buildings and their situations where they don't even have a restroom. But I see it a lot where it's like because the store isn't bright, clean, and safe, now there's these undesirables coming in to use the restroom, but they're not actually using it for the reasons you would want, right? They're abusing it. Mm-hmm. And so then that leads to like penalizing everybody else that is a customer, a paying customer, by not giving them access. And like, I think this is this thing could like skyrocket some stores into like top 20, maybe even top 10% of all the competitors in LA, of just having a clean, decent restroom. Like I said, go back to that scenario, that mom with the small kids there. Like, I have small kids, right? I have 3 small kids. They do not go to the bathroom at the best of times. It's almost every time it's the worst of times when we're out in the middle of somewhere where there's no restroom, right? But it's funny because this is an industry where we are serving people by meeting one of their primary needs, right? Like we all need to breathe. We all need to drink liquid. We need to eat food. We need to sleep. We need to have clean clothes. And at some point, like it or not, we all have to use the restroom. And for some people, that happens at times that suck. And it might be one of those times when a mom is, in the middle of changing a load from a washer to a dryer, and her kid's like, Mom, I got to go number 2 right now. But there's no bathroom here. It's locked. What do we do? Now you've put this customer into a crisis mode, and they have to drop everything they're doing, leave their load there because, they're with a kid. And that's a scenario that I've seen happen. And it could elevate some of these stores so much higher just to have a bathroom.
How do you just pushing back on that? Because absolutely. I think there's no denying like having a bathroom is better than not having a bathroom.
Yeah.
How do you navigate that? Because this is a scenario I see a lot. How do you navigate that if you have an unattended laundromat and you got people abusing it? Where honestly, they're probably going to be in crisis mode anyways. If there's somebody like a homeless person in there sleeping or showering or whatever, and there's nobody there because it's unattended. And obviously you can't have a camera in the bathroom, so you don't always know that somebody's just camping out in there or doing drugs or whatever, which happens a lot.
Yep.
You got any input or wisdom on that scenario?
Yeah, I'll start by saying I don't think this one's critical. I think this is like a cherry on top, icing on the cake. Like if you can, great. If you can get away with it. I don't think there's, like you said, we live in the real world and people abuse these bathrooms for all kinds of various reasons. And that's just the nature of it, right? So I can tell you what I've seen, in card only stores, loyalty card stores. I see badge access in stores that are, and that's one way you can do it without being attended. But that comes with a whole nother can of worms, which is, having a card only store. I've seen, you have to pay to get in, but anybody can go to your bill breaker and get some quarters and then use the bathroom and abuse it. So I don't think there's a great answer, to be honest, especially in LA. I don't think there's a pretty answer for that. I think that in some neighborhoods, it's just not going to work, to be honest. But if you can do it, and if it's something that you think's within your wheelhouse and that you can control that bathroom, and it's not gonna, and maybe you try it, maybe you do like an experimental phase and see, is anyone gonna abuse this bathroom if I leave it open? But I would say not trying it would be a mistake. Like at least just try it, So I know that's an unsatisfactory answer, but
No, I mean, it's a real, I don't have an answer for it necessarily, other than maybe it's just not going to work at that place, or maybe you have complimentary buckets and a curtain in the back corner or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. But I mean, I've seen laundromats where you have to have a card to actually not get in the bathroom, but get in the actual store.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and there's a way to, you know, contact the owner or the manager or whatever to get in the first time. But beyond that, you've got to be a customer. And now you know as an owner who's doing what in your store, because all that stuff's tracked now. So there are things that you can do, but it's a tough one. Like, that's a tough one. But, you know, there's a huge, I don't see it as much anymore, but I know for a long time on like the forums and Facebook and stuff like that in the owner groups, people were like, I'll tell you if you're a good owner, you know, buy your bathroom, right? And that's a huge thing. And it is a big deal, and it is important, and you can tell a lot of owners if they're good owners or not based on their bathrooms. There's no denying that, but you can't always. There's other scenarios there, you know, and a lot of times I see people saying that stuff that are, you know, they're not in the urban areas where you're dealing with some of these issues that nobody's been able to solve, not just in laundromats, but just
in society. Yeah.
yeah. Like, they're just big, hard issues.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's it, man. That's 21. I'd be curious if you think I missed any, but I'm tapped out.
I mean, you hit my early experience.
Sorry if I bruised you a little bit.
Pretty hard. Yeah. This is a pretty brutal episode, actually. So, no, but I mean, I do want to say, like, listen, there are going to be people listening to this, and if this is you out there listening to this, where you're like, dude, you're ease up here.
Yeah, you're kicking me while I'm down.
Stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, listen, I want you to know that both Dan and I mean, we're coming from a place of like, hey, we want you to succeed. We know that this stuff is easier said than done, or at least I know that. I'm sure you know that too, but I know personally that this stuff is easier said than done. And I'm not joking really when I say that I pretty much tick almost all of these, especially early on in my laundromat journey. And so I've been there, and I know what it's like when you're in it. And I know that this stuff is way easier said than done. And if, like me, like if I heard this episode when I first started, number one, I'd be super grateful, because I'd be like, okay, I see all these things. But then pretty much immediately after that, I would feel immediately overwhelmed. Like, oh my gosh, I have to tackle all of these things. And it can feel super overwhelming. So if that's you and you're in that situation, take a deep breath. Like, this is, you know, what's the saying is, I always butcher all the sayings all the time, but the saying's like, you walk a mile into the forest, it's going to take you at least a mile to walk out of the forest, right? Like, if you've gone down this journey and you find yourself where your laundromat's spiraling or struggling, you're starting to see these things stack on each other or compound, take a deep breath. You can't solve all the problems all at once. Just start taking stuff off one at a time, because as much as these negatives compound, guess what? The positives also compound.
Yes.
So the inverse of these things also compound. So, you know, when we talk about these like top-notch owners, guess what? They're just doing the opposite of these things that we talked about today, and it's compounded on each other. And then you just you maintain these, right? You have to be hyper vigilant to maintain these business basics, because like I said, the basics are the business. You don't have to do anything fancy to be successful in this business. You've got to take care of the basics, take care of your customers, and do it consistently for a long time. That's the secret to success. Here is do the opposite of these things for a long time, and you'll be successful. But don't get overwhelmed. If you need help, get help. Talk to other owners, talk to distributors who are in your corner, talk to consultants, find somebody who you feel like you connect with, who you trust, that can help dig you out of these holes, because it's hard. It's so hard. Like, just speaking, it's so hard when you find yourself in this situation, and there's nothing wrong with getting some people to help you out there. So I just wanted to say that.
Oh, thank you. No,
I'm sure there's other things that we could point out here, but I think this is a really good list. but just don't get overwhelmed.
Yeah. If you're, I wanted to piggyback off that. Like, my intention for this was not to, kick the listener while they're down out there. It was actually in a weird way to bring hope and to go, hey, look, if this is you, if you have some of these, all of these, man, the only way to go is up. Like, you can make so many improvements, and these are not, while some of these may be difficult, they're not, like I said, they're not profound. They're just practical. And I think, like I said, if you're getting overwhelmed, just remember, filter everything through that mindset, right? So go back to number one, start with the mindset. And if your mindset is to do right by your customers, but to also, get paid for providing a value, then like these things are going to fall into place, right? But I mostly just wanted to bring this to people's attention. Like you said earlier, what was that? You had a nice name for the audit, but just to
oh gosh, now I'm drawing a blank. The eyes, outside eyes audit.
Yeah. This is an outside eyes audit, right? And just maybe you forgot some of these things, maybe you were blind to it, but just seeing it from a different lens, from the way, because your customer doesn't know, right? They don't know all the hardship that it takes and all the effort it takes to maintain a laundromat. And so this is what they're seeing. So I'm just trying to help bring you to the other side of the table. And that's it. So hopefully we provided some hope to people today.
Yeah. Well, and I wanted to just say one thing off of that too. And this is just going to be harsh, but this is something if you're in this situation, it's something you have to come to grips with. You said the customer doesn't know all these hardships that you're going through. They're just experiencing these things from their perspective, right? The harsh reality is that they don't care how hard it is for you. They care how hard life is for them. And how your business is either helping that or exacerbating the difficulty, right? And the reality is business is hard. Like, it's just hard, and it doesn't matter. If you want a successful business, you just have to come to grips with, okay, like, this is going to be hard, but I just have to do it, because nobody cares. Nobody cares that it's hard for you. Nobody cares that you're struggling financially. Nobody cares that you're trying to figure out how to get homeless people out of your laundromat so it's safe for the community and you don't know what to do. Nobody cares. You just got to buckle down and do it, right? But that doesn't mean you have to do it alone. So, the harsh reality is that your customers don't care how hard it is. They just care about their experience. But the hope here is that, this podcast exists. You're on here. Other guests have come on and shared their experience and their wisdom, because we all get it and we know how hard it can be, and we want to try to help each other, right? So don't suffer alone, I guess is my point. Is, while your customers don't care, you don't have to suffer alone. Get some help, get some encouragement. Sometimes you just need somebody to say, you can do it.
Yeah.
In fact, I had a consulting call yesterday where there was a lady who was like, I'm thinking about doing this laundromat, but I'm not sure. And I just said, you know what, you can do it. And this is a green light, go for it. Right. And that's all she needed to hear was go for it. And sometimes we just need that. So a little bit of like harsh truth there, but also like, that's why we're here. That's why we're all here kind of doing this thing together, is because you don't have to suffer alone.
Well said.
I feel like we should like end on something more positive.
Yeah.
Dude, your head is looking super round. I just want to like,
oh, thank you.
Very proportional.
Thanks.
I want to like, end it on a positive note.
Yeah. I prayed that I would get a beard in high school, and I didn't realize it would come at the cost of the rest of my hair.
Well, you gotta be specific about these things.
Yeah, you do. I mean? You do.
It's like the genie thing,
Yeah.
No, dude, I appreciate you coming on and sharing this stuff and taking the time to throw together 20 plus a bonus little tips for us here, because again, it's easy to get locked in on our own stuff. Kind of no matter where you're at on the process. If you're looking for one now, or you've got one, or it's real easy to get locked in, and it's good to get reminded of these basics. And sometimes to get jolted out of our tunnel vision here that we can get. So I appreciate you putting the effort into putting this together, and then putting the effort into sort of pitching it to me with the video, which was awesome. And then putting in the effort of actually taking the time to actually sit down and have this conversation with me. I really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you, man. I think, I don't want to keep you. I know pressed for time here, but we were joking around earlier, kind of like a laundry chaplain to the community here, and I thank you for this platform. You've helped me. I've got some value out of it, even as a distributor, and I know that you're helping thousands of people out there. And so, like he said, guys, you're not alone out there. So yeah,
I appreciate it. Well, last question I have for you is: people want to connect with you, or maybe they need equipment in SoCal area. Or they just want to kind of connect with you and get, pick your brain or network or whatever. What's the best way they can connect with you?
Yeah. So the best way to connect with me is to you have that link I sent you?
Yeah, I got a link. I'll throw it in the show.
Okay,
notes.
yeah. So there's a Linktree link that you can contact me directly if you wanted to reach out. If you're a local in the LA area, like I said earlier, from like North Torrance to Pasadena, man, I would love to help you, support you in your business. If you just want to call me and yell at me because I was a little too harsh today, that's fine too. So
sweet. I love it. Yeah. So I'll put the link in the show notes. If you're on YouTube, that'll be down below in the description. Otherwise, man, I appreciate you so much. Looking forward to, whatever's next. We'll have to stay in touch for sure. And who knows what happens in the future. Maybe something cool.
Thanks, brother.
All right. Hope you loved that episode a whole lot more than I did, because again, it was painful for me to go through that and relive so many of those mistakes. And honestly, that episode probably could have saved me a ton of money early on. So hopefully you got some good stuff out of it. Huge shout out to Dan for putting that together again, going the extra mile there. And listen, put something into action here today. Pick something off that list and say, I am going to set myself up to not only not do those things, but to do the exact opposite of whatever you pick so that you will succeed. Action, it is what's going to take you to your goals, whatever they are. All right. Let's jump. Well, actually, we're not going to jump into it. This is the outro. We're going to jump out of it and into action, and we'll see you next week. Peace.